Are you ready to board? It was an hour before my alarm was set to go off when a series of rapid thumps jolted me awake. I shot up from the small, hard bed, eyes darting around the old trailer home as the bombardment continued, like a butcher's shop had been dropped on this lakeside retreat. By the time I'd thrown off the dusty covers and gotten my feet on the cold floor, the barrage had stopped, leaving me in total silence save for my own breath. Then came another sound. It cut through the stillness, reminding me of the noise hot air balloons make when the fire is used to send them higher. It was there for a moment and then gone. I took a few seconds to calm down before finding my clothes from yesterday and pulling them on, along with a muddy pair of boots by the door. I strung my hunting knife by the sheath through my belt, just in case. The dim light from outside barely lit up the windows past the worn curtains, but it was enough for me to see that fog shrouded the entire landscape just beyond the trailer. I grabbed the battery-powered lantern I had brought, even if it wouldn't help much. Still, holding it and having my knife nearby made my hands shake a little less. I opened the front door, stepping out onto the ramshackle, half-rotted porch of the lake house. It was a steep, 1-minute walk down a gravel path to the small lake, formed from a dammed valley and stocked with fish to attract development. Instead, it had only managed a trailer park nearby and a few old places like the one my family shared. I had been looking forward to some alone time, but apparently the weather had other plans. I groaned, rubbing my temples as my anxiety faded. Stupid Missouri weather. Whatever had happened, I hoped the lake house wasn't damaged. My carpentry skills were minimal, and I didn't have the funds to hire someone to fix this crumbling place. But as soon as I stepped off the covered porch, I found the issue was something else entirely. Plopped right on the front step was a large, gelatinous blob, gray and squishy, almost like a deflated balloon. I grabbed a walking stick from the porch and poked the blob, moving it off the step with a meaty thud. Stepping off, I spotted more of the blobs even as the fog closed in around me. I walked around the house, checking for damage but finding only more blobs littering the landscape and rolling off the roof. Each one barely the length of my hand was everywhere. What on earth could these things be? I poked another with the stick, and instead of breaking, it simply gave inward under pressure. I sighed, realizing I had my cell phone, but there was no signal here, and I couldn't take my car through this thick fog. I had a long walk ahead of me, moving toward the road. The lake house and tree line vanished into the fog. No noise cut through the air save for my own footsteps. What had happened to the animals? Normally, the forest wildlife would make their presence known, birds chirping, squirrels scurrying, deer shuffling through the undergrowth. Instead, there was only silence. I found the reason why when I started down the gravel road that circled the lake. Right in the center, just past the mailbox, lay a deer as if it had been hit by a car. Its eyes were open, lids pulled back in a nightmare. It twitched, and as I approached, I saw one of those blobs clinging to its back, like a tumor. I circled around and poked at the blob, but it kept its grip on the deer. A tremble made its way back into my hands, and I wished I had a gun along with my knife. My family had been coming to this lake for decades, and this had never happened before. The fog had always been in the hills south of us, rolling slopes of forests that even hunters avoided. I wondered if all the new construction had altered the river or something nearby. Either way, I had to keep going. The silence clung to me as much as the fog did, and I felt like I was caught in the clutches of some gigantic amoeba, a living being made of water. I tightened my grip on the lantern and walking stick, lifting my feet carefully as I encountered more blobs, gray, translucent land mines. I smacked them aside when I could, clearing a path, but many I dared not touch. The deer was just the first. More animals littered the road, unfortunate critters hit by an unwanted surprise from the sky. Turkeys, a fox, squirrels, more deer, Even the coyote I had heard last night teach one maned and laid flat. I continued around the lake, wondering how many had made it to the water, floating in clumps. The smell of ozone clung to everything. I wrapped a strip of cloth around my face to help me breathe, and soon I saw another house of blue, a frame cabin with a flapping blue tarp on the roof and broken down cars in the yard. The blobs covered everything, appearing more inflated than those I had encountered earlier. Unlike before, not a single animal lay nearby. I approached the front door and knocked. "Hey!" I called out, shocked by how loud my voice was in the dead air. "Name's Edgar, I'm staying down the road." "You got a phone, didn't this guy live here full-time?" "He had to have a landline, or maybe even a walkie-talkie. We really gotta make some calls." I reached for the door and found it unlocked, squeaking open. Inside, the walls were adorned with taxidermy animals and an array of antlers, plus pictures of the resident holding various fish caught in the lake. The floor was bare wood, the place feeling like it was still being worked on. I moved through the hall, scoping out each Spartan room but finding no one. "Hello," I called again. "Really sorry for barging in. Anyone home?" Nothing. I made my way to the other side of the frame. I took the stairs, emerging into an open attic space that served as a bedroom. Across from me was the blue tarp, forced inward by the gray blobs falling on it. It hung like a curtain, fog spilling inside from a hole in the ceiling. To my side was an open gun cabinet, and I could see a hunting rifle inside, along with a box of cartridges on a shelf. I moved in, grabbing the rifle and slinging its sash over my shoulder. No one was here, and if I got through this, I'd return it with a few dollars for any ammo I used. My body relaxed some as I felt the stock in my hands, then the tarp rattled. I spun around, tensing when I saw a figure forming in the tarp. "Hey," I called out. "So sorry about this. I'll give it back." I moved the rifle away, pointing it down. "You really need to know what's going on out there." No response. The figure shuffled, jerking around like a marionette. It stumbled free of the tarp, revealing a man dressed in torn jeans and a soiled tank top. Each muscle in him looked tensed, like wires supporting a bridge. His eyes and mouth pulled back from his face, a frozen look of surprise. Adorning him was one of those gray blobs, latched around his neck. Long, gray tentacles spread from the blob, wrapping around the man's torso and limbs, making him look at something he wanted to shy away from. What the actual? I lost my words, trembling hands grabbing the box of cartridges and shoving them into my pocket. I tried to open the chamber of the rifle. "Please stay back, you just stay right there. I'll be right back with your gun and an ambulance." The man regarded me, or perhaps it was more accurate to say the blob did. It made him lurch forward, and as he got closer, I saw it had swollen, little fins forming on its side. "The Mist Queen is boarding this area," said the man, a tentacle wrapped tight around his throat. His voice was dead, empty, spoken without rhythm. "Are you ready to board?" "Mist Queen, board, what?" I racked my mind at what I was hearing. "Are you ready to board?" The man asked again. "You aren't ready." This man wasn't either. "This will be quick." His hand shot down, grabbing a loose blob and palming it like a baseball. As he held it, the tentacles shot out like a spiked trap, hanging in the air before going limp. "You will be ready for boarding." The man threw the blob at me, and I barely ducked aside as it flailed past, its tentacles thrashing in a desperate attempt to grab me. The stench of ozone grew. The blob hit the wall with a thud but didn't fall. Instead, it floated down, its tentacles drooping. I darted down the stairs as fast as I could, and soon I could hear the man charging after me. I hit the ground floor and made for the outside as he threw himself down the stairs, the controlling parasite not caring about the damage it was doing to him. I slung the rifle again, freeing my hand to grab my walking stick. I dropped the lantern and readied my weapon as he shot upright, lifted by strings. He charged at me, the blob now in his hand. I lunged ahead, knocking him down with enough force to crack his chest, but I fell back from the momentum. I caught myself, eyeing him. His chest had caved in, but still, he launched back onto his feet. The parasite focused on its goal despite his injuries. "You will be ready to board the Mist Queen," he said in that same cold voice, as if uttered by a robot. "Hell with this," I said, dropping the stick and readying the rifle. I forced a cartridge into the chamber and locked it tight, raising the barrel at him. I tried to keep my hand steady, replicating the breathing exercises my uncle had taught me. The man shot forward, and I fired. Instead of hitting him straight on, my shaking sent the bullet into the pulsating sac on his neck. The sac exploded in a fiery ball, igniting part of the frame and sending the man's head flying as his decapitated body fell. The tentacles covering him fell off, and my ears rang as I stumbled back, doing everything I could to calm down and escape the burning house, grabbing the lantern as I did. Somehow, killing a man wasn't even close to my main thought as I stumbled back into the fog, stopping at a rusted truck to catch myself. What had I just seen? This couldn't be real. Was that some kind of alien? Had an alien ship come to drop a bioweapon on us for easy abductions? I could see more blobs scattered around, inflating like party balloons. They lay about doing nothing, but if I had touched one, I shuddered. I tied the lantern to my belt, thankful I had thought to grab it. My walking stick was gone, left in the fire-consuming house. I wasn't about to reclaim it, and the rifle took priority. I heard more shuffling in the woods, and now I understood why I hadn't seen animals. The aliens must have gone to my house last, traveling around the lake dropping their puppeteer parasites. The Mist Queen, the name stuck in my mind. I recalled a story my uncle had told about a zeppelin that had crashed into one of the lakes after a crew member went mad. Since then, the ghost of that zeppelin haunted the forest, carried by the fog. Were these parasites the twisted forms of its crew, seeking more passengers for the afterlife? More shuffling, and just off in the fog, I saw forms moving in the undergrowth. I spotted a buck, tentacles twisting up its antlers, and loaded another cartridge. I tried to spot the parasite on the animal. Ozone plagued the air. I kept moving, hearing the deer lurch forward, falling over its limbs with less grace than the man had. I picked up my pace, avoiding the parasites that hadn't caught host yet. Another animal stumbled from the woods, but I kept going. I did a double take when I saw a squirrel floating through the air, carried by a larger swollen parasite like a balloon. This one had fully formed side fins, with a cavity between them and a circular bulge on its front. I swore it was pointing that bulge at me. At last, I saw the rows of mobile homes ahead, encased in a shabby wooden fence. The Oak Village trailer park. More small animals floated upward, disappearing into the fog. Squirrels, rabbits, birds, even a fox and bobcat, all with parasites inflating to support their climb. A deer stumbled out of the woods, its parasite the size of a beach ball and still swelling, looking desiccated. No time, I charged up the road, finally spotting the trailer park office. I barged inside and slammed the door shut behind me. I pushed myself against it, panting as I slid down to the floor. No lights were on inside the office. It felt as empty and dead as the rest of the world I now inhabited. Who knew how far this fog went, created by the Mist Queen to take on passengers? Carried here by changes to the landscape affecting where its vapors could travel, I checked the chamber of my rifle again. I had a handful of cartridges left, my lantern, and my hunting knife for whatever good that would do. Maybe it would leave after taking enough wildlife and whatever poor souls had touched its crew. Or perhaps they would all be ready to board. "Hey," said a voice, followed by the cocking of a gun. I looked up to see a middle-aged, Frumpy bald man pointing a pistol at me before lowering it. You ain't one of those freaks, sorry about that. It's okay, I said. Been a long morning, I pulled myself up, Edgar. Warren, the man said, where on earth you come from, boy? Down the road, I replied, got any idea what's going on? No more than you do, I'd wager, he said, moving to the front desk to grab a water bottle, which he tossed to me. Those damn blob things plastered my entire park before the sun was up. I tried to clear them off before the dimwits renting my lots started messing with them when I realized something was off. I'm sure you've seen what these things do.